Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lunatics. Tyler Edwards here, your host. We've got an exciting St. Louis City SC focused episode coming your way, and it's been a little bit of a hectic week. An exciting game we just had on Saturday that we touched on in our last episode, but we're going to go a lot more in depth here, as well as a little bit of a clunker from last night at Vancouver. John, what do you got for me?
More of the same, really. I 100% agree. Talking about Sporting Kansas is going to be a lot of fun, and talking about Vancouver is going to be a lot of whatever the opposite of fun is. So, like,
I think it's
dreadful.
Yeah, it's probably about the same as hanging out with you normally, but yeah.
Right, right. But like here, we make it work. But yeah, it's going to be exactly like that. 100%. But we beat Sporting Kansas. LAFC lost to RSL question mark?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Real
On
Salt Lake
Sunday. Yep.
beat them 1-0 on Sunday.
Right. So that leaves us clinching the West, which is just crazy as a first year team. Like goated status, right?
We are the first American franchise team to win their conference in the regular season ever.
Goated. Goat status.
The
Right there.
only franchise team, and actually this is a fairly recent franchise team that has anything potentially up on us, would be the Vegas Golden Knights, who did make the
Yeah.
Stanley Cup Finals in their first year of existence,
Right.
but they did not win their division or conference. So
No, no. But for the first time in Vegas Golden Knight history, St. Louis City SC has won the Western Conference. So that's what it's all about, really. Let me ask you this though. What was your honest expectation for how this team was going to do at the beginning of the year?
So I had this thought, and I actually almost brought it up a couple episodes ago, but kind of wanted to wait to see how we finished.
Right.
So going into the season, I thought teams would underestimate us. The
Sure.
press would win us some games, and I thought we would be a fringe playoff team.
Yeah.
We started the season hot,
We
winning
did.
5 in a row. I remember having discussions with you early on in the season about, okay, well, if we're looking at last year, right, you really probably
Right.
need like 40-ish points to get to
Mm-hmm.
make the playoffs if there's 9 teams that make it.
Right.
We're at 15 after 5 games. We got a chance to make the playoffs. But we constantly talked, right, about how there was going to be a lull, there's going to be adversity. How are we going to combat that? Klaus went down. We,
Right.
had to figure out other ways to get offense without Klaus really providing and driving that for us like he was doing so well and drawing so much
Mm-hmm.
attention from the other team's defense.
Absolutely.
I honestly was concerned that I knew we would make the playoffs, but I was concerned about whether we may or may not end up the 1 seed until a couple games after the open or the Leagues Cup break.
Right.
We started out a little slow coming out of the break that first game or so, and
Right.
then we started looking like ourselves. And then when I saw Klaus come back perform and strong, like I knew in my mind there was no doubt that we were going to win the 1 seed.
Right.
It was just a matter of when we would clinch it. And my hope was that it would never come down to decision day because Seattle's a tough team to play.
Right.
But at least we're not playing in Seattle on turf again.
That's true. And we'll talk more about that turf when we get to Vancouver. But I have to say now, while I'm thinking about it, I am really excited for that Seattle game because I did some projections and I think Seattle's going to have to bring it to lock in the number 2 seed. Um, and I'm really excited to see how we measure up against them because I think, like, and I'll talk more about this later, but I think having this tough game against Vancouver and then hopefully a game that we win, but a tough competition against Seattle. I think that's going to be really good experience for us going into the playoffs. So I'm really excited for that game. It's going to be a good test.
I have a question for you.
Oh,
So
I have a
there's
question
four
for you.
teams. There's 4 teams competing for more or less the second and third seeds right
Mm-hmm.
now. You've
Mm-hmm.
got Real Salt Lake, you have
Yep.
Vancouver, you
Yep.
have Seattle, and LAFC.
Sure.
Who are the 2 teams that you want to get the 2 and 3 seed to stay on the other side of the bracket?
I was thinking about this earlier too. I think I want Seattle and LAFC to get it, but I'm really torn because LAFC has not looked too terribly hot until last night. For a while, they looked really good last night, like scary good last night. But they've looked kind of worn down. Uh, so I'm leaning. I want Seattle and LAFC because then like they can take each other out. Whereas if one of them ends up on our side, we would have to beat them and then beat the other one probably. So I'd rather them take out each other and then we could beat whoever's left.
For what it's worth, I agree. I think we match up better, especially at home
Mm-hmm.
against Real Salt Lake or against Vancouver,
Yeah, I
especially
agree.
Vancouver. I mean, we saw what happened when Vancouver had to come to us,
Right.
a little while ago. And I think, especially with our starters playing, I think we stand a better chance. But we'll, again, to be determined. It's just
To be
a
determined.
wish list, if you will.
Right, right. Okay, so here's my question for you before we hop into Sporting Kansas. Okay, so there are what, three colors Berkey can wear, right? Black, yellow, and green. I think that's it. Which put them in order from the one you like the most to the one you like the least.
My so green's my favorite color. So take
Sure,
that into consideration here. But Berkey and the way that he looks in those jerseys is what I'm
sure.
looking at here.
He's a
My
handsome guy.
preference is yellow.
Ew,
I
that's the
really
worst
like the
one.
yellow on Berkey. I don't necessarily love it on other keepers,
Ugh.
but I like the way Berkey wears it. Um,
Oh,
and then
that's
I would go
gross.
black number 2 and green number 3. But if you want my favorite jersey, it's the green one.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Like I'm never asking you a style question again. Let's go to Kansas City. That's you're wrong. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, you know what? We'll move on to Sporting Kansas.
That
Um,
works for me.
yeah, the barbecue.
The barbecue. Barbecue 3.0.
Barbecue 3.0 and really the rubber match in the series. So for those of you who maybe just be jumping in and aren't huge soccer fans, St. Louis City beat Sporting Kansas 4-0 in St. Louis. Then we went to Kansas, had to play them there. We lost 2-1 in the second game of the series. Then they had to come back to us in St. Louis. And for a while, I'll be honest, I was nervous. We
Yeah.
didn't look great, but it wasn't that we were being necessarily truly outplayed, but they had their fair share of chances and we were not
Right.
capitalizing on ours.
Right.
That there was also that piece of we have Berkey, and Berkey saved us a couple of times there with a couple of those chances, helter skelter, if you will,
Sure.
uh, as I was watching that. But we set the tone, and by we, I mean the fans, the city, I mean everything. The tifo at the beginning of the game. I
That was
mean,
fucking awesome.
best one I've ever seen.
I mean, you even see like soccer fan pages and whatever from like Europe and other places in the world like showing this tifo because I mean it was so iconic. So for those of you who haven't seen it, you have to look it up. But it's basically a play on the Wizard of Oz with the Wicked Witch of the West, and it says you're not in Kansas anymore. And first off, like it's well known, it's famous, like that it hits for that level. But it also hits because we when we hear Kansas City, we think Kansas City, Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
but they actually play in Kansas City, Kansas.
Now, when they were the
Now,
Wizards, by
worst name
the
of all
way,
time. But yes, please continue.
Kansas City Wizards, which was a great name. You have no idea
Mm.
what the hell you're talking about. Kansas
You
City
have
Wizards is an
bad style on
amazing,
everything.
amazing name. But when they were the Kansas City Wizards, it was Kansas City, Missouri.
But it's not anymore.
Now it's
So
Sporting Kansas.
yes, Sporting Kansas. And so I don't know. I if I was playing in Kansas, like I wouldn't want anyone to know that. Like Kansas is a sucky state. We all know that. And if you're living in Kansas right now, you probably also know that as well. So I mean, I think it like with it saying you're not in Kansas anymore. I was like, yes, that's the tone. We're gonna come out here and we're going to put a beat down on you.
I agree. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
What's the worst thing about your dog running away in Kansas?
Is this a this is a joke. This isn't even a question.
that you have to watch the dog run away for 3 days.
That's a joke about how there's no trees, guys.
There's also no hills.
There's no hills.
Honestly, if you were driving through Kansas, you could get on the interstate, put a steering wheel lock, and put on cruise control, and probably just sleep, and you probably would be fine.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree with that. Um, so we ended up winning 4-1. And so what's funny about this score line, so I had to watch on delay. So first off, if you guys have been following, anytime I watch City on delay, we play poorly. And the curse is broken. I want everyone to know. I did some voodoo magic or, whatever to break the curse.
Which
Curse is
magic?
broken. I don't want to reveal my secrets, but it did involve burning an effigy. So that's all I can say about that for legal reasons. But so I went to this concert with my wife on Saturday night, and we got stuck in just the most god awful traffic line to leave the parking lot. Like I swear to God, I sat there for an hour and didn't move. But she's playing on her phone, and she knows that she is not like that. She'll see the score. I've got my phone on do not disturb. I'm not using like any social media or anything, which is really hard to do, by the way, when you're sitting in a car for an hour not moving, right? But I didn't want the score to be spoiled for me. And like, that's commitment. That is commitment, guys. And then she starts kind of laughing and she goes, "Do you want me to tell you who won?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want you to do that. Like, we've had this conversation. Like, no, don't do that to me. Like, I'm going to stay up till like 2:30 in the morning watching this game once we get home." But then, like, as I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, okay, she wouldn't have made that joke because she's a fan of the team. She wouldn't have been laughing while saying that if we lost. She wouldn't have said anything at all. So we probably didn't lose. And so that leaves two outcomes. Either we won big because she laughed, right? Like it wasn't just that she saw the score, it was that she laughed when she saw the score. So I was like, we either won big or we drew because, and like, Kelsey, like she has a very dry sense of humor. Like I could see her finding it hilarious to tell me that she's going to tell me who wins and then tell me that nobody won. Like she would think that was hilarious.
She would. And I love your wife. So I have no bad things to say. And I think that it was a very funny joke. And Kelsey, I love you. Also, while we're talking about family members, I did find out. So last episode, I said, and I quote, my mom hasn't watched shit talking about this podcast.
And I bet she texted you that she was listening to it.
Apparently she has watched an episode. So Mom, I'm sorry.
That's good. You do need to apologize. I'm glad that it's recorded.
I was pretty sure that she had not watched any. And luckily she did not watch the last episode. She was like, "Hey, I was watching and I saw that interview you did with that pickleball player. He seems like a nice guy." And I was like, great
episode to watch.
I'm glad you did not watch the last one because I straight called you up for not
watching. That's awesome. Sorry for that little tangent we just took. What did you think of the lineup though for Sporting?
For Sporting or for against Sporting?
Against Sporting, for our team against Sporting.
No, you're good.
A Sporting match.
Yeah, against Kansas. So I thought what I felt was BC knowing that we had a chance to clinch the top seed and putting his best lineup out there as he sees it.
Sure.
We may have disagreements, but I think that's how he sees it. And really, I don't necessarily disagree with the starting lineup that he put out there.
Yeah, no, it's hard to find fault for it. What I found very telling about it, so you and I have talked a lot about our boy Scary Jerry Stroud and how he does not have much of a left foot, although I think he's been practicing on it because he scored an absolute banger with it.
I wouldn't call it a banger. It was a well.
I'm gonna call it a banger. It's his weak foot.
But we've talked about this too. Because the game before he had a couple of good-looking shots off his left foot.
That's true.
When he's coming across the box and he's putting his left foot on it from there's a different confidence about him when he's on the right side of the field. But when he's on the left side and he has to try to figure out how to cross the ball with his left foot, or one time it, He looks absolutely lost.
I think in my thought about this is like I think he's scared to kick it in the air. I think he knows he has no control of like an air an aerial kick with it. But like if he can just like kick it on the ground, I think he's comfortable with it. But what I found telling, so Indy started on the right this game, and Indy is left footed. And AZ started on the left, and AZ is right footed. And I mean, we have seen all of those wing guys kind of, invert in. But I think like seeing both of them out there and very pointedly which side they were on, I think it's very clear how coach wants them to play in those positions where he wants them coming in, trying to, not necessarily running fully across goal, but to try to come in and open up spots for them to take shots like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think because of the way that we funnel the ball into the middle, it
Sure.
makes a lot and I mean a ton of sense for us to be able to, play those guys out wide and then have
Right.
them crash in or cut in and be able to hit that shot.
Right.
I mean, again, I'm not ever going to come out here and claim to be the best soccer player in the world, but one of my favorite things to do is to play on the left side. I'm very, I've got a lot stronger right foot than I do left, and to cut in and rip shots from, top of the box, top of the 18. And I think, these guys aren't necessarily looking for that 100%, but they are looking to, capitalize on that ability. And
Sure.
we do have a player also on our team that we've talked about, and Thor, who that's his bread and butter.
That's what he does. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and plus, if you want an aerial cross in, three of our top four fullbacks can do that pretty well. I mean, we've talked enough about how Kyle does not have that skill, and that's fine. It's just not a skill he has. That's okay. But I mean, either of the guys on the right can do it, and Marcanic can do it as well. So we have ways to still provide that in the game if that's how we need to move the ball in as well. And I do like that sort of balance that we have in our attack now with the addition of Marcanic.
No, I agree. I think Marcanic adds a lot, but I looking at the lineup right top to bottom, you've got Big Sam and you've got Klaus up top, which is telling, especially with Nico, where Nico's
Mm-hmm.
at currently in the
Right.
hierarchy
It's a
of
form
starting.
thing. It's a form thing.
And Klaus, and if you guys didn't know, um, number 2 and number 3 in the league for goals per minute played. Number 2 is Big Sam and number 3 is Klaus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They're
that in
just
and of itself is
insane.
telling. They find the goal, the net, they know how to score. Um, now looking at the midfield, right? You've got AZ, you've got Leuven, you've got Indy and Blom, and I think that's you and I have talked a lot. I still think that's our best four starting midfielders, and I've thought that for a little
Yeah.
bit now.
Yeah.
Um, and then in the back line, obviously Nielsen and Parker.
Hmm.
Parker plays a lot better when he has Nielsen because Nielsen understands positioning
Hmm.
a lot better than somebody like Yaro does, which was highlighted last night, which we'll get more into here in a
Yeah.
minute. But
Yeah.
I and then obviously Marcanic playing on the left, and I thought it was very telling to see Nerwinski on the right
Right.
starting as this is who we think. Now, my question for you is if we play a guy who's a team who has somebody like a Denny Boanga on the
Hmm.
left, do you think Watts gets the start over Nurk just for the speed factor?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I do think Watts is faster than Nurk. Um, but I don't think I've never really felt like Nurk has gotten like blown out in a foot race or anything. I think he probably makes up for a lot of it with positioning and anticipation of what the play's doing. I think if we play LAFC again, I mean, it's going to be really hard not to play Watts there because he did do it against Malanga. But I think Nurk played so well in his spot appearances that he had that he pushed himself back into the starting lineup. Something coach has shown year long is that like he's going to ride the hot hand. Our top 11 is very fluid based on form. It's not so much about who is the best overall, it's who's the best right now. I mean we could name maybe five guys who are going to start every game, right, at their positions, right? if everyone's healthy. Klaus, Leuven, Parker, Nielsen, Berkey. I could make the case for Blom being the sixth guy there, and after that, it's all form.
I have one more, and
Easy.
because we don't have anybody to really replace him, and it's Marcanic.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But right for the offense, yeah,
Well,
I could say that.
yeah,
But if Marcanic starts getting blown out defensively, I could see Hebert getting starts. But Marcanic hasn't shown that yet. He's been very, very good defensively. He's been very good defensively. I've been very happy with him.
yeah, and I think that's what I'm my piece of it, right? Is
Right.
Marcanic is your left back. Right back, you can make the argument for Nerwinski or Watts or whichever's playing better.
Right.
You lose so much by pulling Marcanic out of the lineup on the left side. He's a must start to me. So I
Yeah.
think three of your four defensive backs, right? Three,
Mm-hmm.
your goalie, you've got Leuven and you've got Klaus, and the rest of it can 100% depend on
Right.
who's playing well and who's healthy and who's just doing what they need to do.
Right. Well, and if you go back to how Lutz built the team, right, that's essentially the spine, which is what, he was very clear from the beginning. That was going to be his priority with finding good players. That's where he was focusing first. And I think that's very clear with that exercise we just did on who must start. And all of them, I felt in this game against Kansas City, every single player except for two players played exceptionally well. I thought it was the most technically skilled we looked across the board. I thought Blom looked much more creative and confident with the ball than he has like ever. Um, Now there were times where I was like, hey, maybe we should go back to being a little bit less confident than we are right now and like be a little bit more sure of what we're doing. But he's trying things, he's advancing it. But yeah, and I thought, like I said, almost everyone except for two people. There are two people who I thought did not have a good game compared to where they normally are, and I thought everyone else played outstanding.
Who did you highlight as not having a great game?
Hebert and Thorson, who both came on at the 87th minute, and it does take a few minutes to kind of warm up to the game, but it was, um,
I
you
thought you
know,
were going to pick out a starter, and I'm like, what starter are you going to pick?
no.
Pick
That
here?
this is just like the total team. Everyone who
No,
played
you're
got
good.
on the field.
I agree. And I think one of the more frustrating things for me is we brought in Thorson,
Hmm.
and the guy is fit, he's athletic, he's ready to
Hmm.
play, and we just have not really found a great place for him
Hmm.
to really shine.
Well, it wasn't
Hebert's Hebert, and again, you know, part of me initially when I was like, God, we gave up that goal late in extra
right.
time, and
The very
part of
last
me
play
was
of the
like,
game.
huh?
It was
Yeah,
the very
last play
last
of the
play of the
game,
game. Yeah.
and we give up the goal. And initially, I'm like, God, it's Hebert on the left backside where he doesn't like, he does not good there. But then I watched the replay and I'm like, that's marking like he's a center back. He's just
Right.
not doing what
He just got outplayed. He knew what he was supposed to be doing. It's just the other guy made a better play than he did. And I mean, if you play long enough, that's going to happen. That's not like in defense of getting beat, but he just got beat. Like that's all there is to it, right? You could see like watching it, like the other guy, the Kansas City guy, sees that the cross is probably about to be come in, and he gets his arms extended on Hebert, and Hebert can't get past that. It was a great play.
what happened there. And if you watch, and Hebert's reaction to the guy getting his hands out is to try to backpedal into him.
Mm-hmm.
And all the guy did was step around him as soon as he did
Right.
that.
Right.
And to me, and I know you've always been higher on Hebert than I have been.
Sure.
Um, I I know that he's our really only option right now on the left back side because Nelson, I think, is still nursing an injury and has been
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
But he wasn't on
And
the injury list, which is it's just weird, isn't it?
I don't trust MLS injury lists like I don't trust hockey injury lists.
That's fair. That's fair. That's
Getting
accurate.
you get an injury report from the Blues and it's like Torrey Krug has a left lower body injury. So what, his leg, his knee, his foot, he's
Right.
day to day. What the hell does that even mean, right? And then you go
Right.
to like the NFL and they're like, oh, we just got all these scan reports back and he has this, this, and this wrong. He needs surgery. He's out for this long. Well,
Right. You go from no
the flip side
information to like very
on
severe
hockey. It's
information.
like, oh, they need surgery. They're going to be out for a year, but all you get is day to day. Like,
Right.
wait, what?
Right. Right.
So anyway,
Um,
I my piece is we need a better solution for our second string left back. Hebert
oh,
needs to be
absolutely.
a center back sub, not a left back sub, and it's also hurting. Like if we wanted to build up his trade value, it's hurting that as well, or transfer
Absolutely.
market value.
Right. I do think I do have a solution to that that I think we will see for next year. This is a little shameless plug for our future city roster moves episode we're going to do after the season. But I do have a solution there. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. Um, we want to like talk about our goals that we scored this game because we're all over the place right now. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's get into a little bit of the flow game. Like I said, the game started, it was back and forth. We didn't capitalize on some chances that we had. We made some subs to take advantage of the game and to change the game.
sure.
We brought Nico in up top for AZ to kind of play that holding position underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great sub. If you let AZ run for, 60, 70 minutes and he's gassed, Giochini's a guy who's got the technical ability to play underneath and play
Mm-hmm.
that well. And then we brought in Stroud for Indy. And there's nothing against Indy, but Indy was running his ass off again. And we saw it against
Mm-hmm.
LAFC where if Indy starts and he's running his ass off like he has, he's
Mm-hmm.
gassed after about 60, 70 minutes. And I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
that's the right move to sub him because his game is so technical. If he's tired, he's going to lose that touch a
Right.
little bit and it hurts him more.
Yeah, I
We
think
bring them
And
in.
Stroud have a similar game model, or where we're at the 60th minute, you can tell for all three of them, it's like okay, it's time to start pulling them out.
Yes. So we bring in Stroud. Stroud quickly draws a foul, being the nuisance that he is. Luckily, we still have the one and only Eddie Leuven step up, take a free kick. My favorite part is the entire game, the announcers were sucking on Polito's cock about how great he is. And in this play, Polito is marking Big Sam, completely mistimes the jump, and Sam watches him mistime the jump and just stands there and waits for the ball and heads it into the net.
Right. Let's also talk about just like the strategical mistake of having a guy who's a normal sized guy. He's like I think he's listed at 5'10", covering someone who's listed at 6'4", 6'5", right? Like you have
You and
like
I have different thoughts when we hear normal sized man because you said that, and I'm like, Polito's not like 6'1".
yeah, I base mine off of stats and you base yours off of fantasy. So
I base mine off my family, which is, fair. Also, not my fault.
sure.
That's what I grew up
Um,
around, man.
hey, no, I get it. There's a lot of tall people in my family too. I'm just saying stats.
It helps. It helps reinforce the fact that you're not short. You're average.
I'm average height. Yes. Thank you. I if we ever have our friend Tyler on here, our other friend Tyler, I'm gonna let you know now. Shout out Tyler, that you are going to be called Short Tyler, and he's going to be called Tyler, um, since he's about 3 or 4 inches taller than you. So
you know,
I'm
there's a
just letting
lot.
you know in advance.
There's a lot of different things there. I think he's got 3 or 4 inches on me in some other areas too, from what I've heard from his wife. But I mean, we can get into that in another time.
Sure.
So we score that goal, and then so I turned to Lindsay. So we were watching it. We were watching on a delay, but only about like at this point we're almost live after halftime. So I think we
Sure.
were because we had put the kids in bed. So I want to say we were right at about maybe like 2 minutes behind
Oh yeah.
time wise. So like we had caught up a lot because we caught up 15 minutes or so. We tried to get the kids in bed early Saturday night for this game. We
Hmm.
were both pumped. And
Absolutely.
so we get in and I turned to Lindsay and I was like, Kansas looks absolutely demoralized. We
Right.
need to capitalize and push for a second goal. And no sooner than I say that, it was 2 minutes
Yeah.
in time.
Yeah.
We get the ball, it gets down in the corner. You see Klaus and you see Leuven absolutely pressing their asses off down into the
Right.
corner by the corner of the 18. Their defender makes a play just trying to get it out. Stroud being the guy that he is and just running all the times, coming in,
Hmm.
crashing the box, and it lands at his feet. Like it runs,
Right.
ball flies right into him. He makes a nice move and then puts the ball into the net with his left foot, which I've criticized him for and probably will continue to criticize him for every time he plays on the left side of the field and looks lost with it, but absolutely looked great. Put the ball in there. And then not only that, then gets absolutely thrown to the ground by Klaus in
Hmm.
celebration, and pops right up like nothing happened.
Right. Right. I know I sent you the meme, and maybe we'll post it on our page if I can find who actually created it and give them credit. But there's a meme that was in the Facebook group of Klaus throwing Stroud, and they photoshopped in a Pokeball and like made it look like a Pokedex, so that way it was an "I choose you, Jared Stroud" type of picture, and that was fantastic. Um, so they were still singing "Happy Birthday" to Sam when Stroud scored in the supporters section because it was his birthday that day. Um, and then Stroud found himself really involved. I guess the third goal he wasn't involved in as much because it was Edu again. And Edu gets the ball on the left side of the field, outside of the box, but not very much outside. And you can see Klaus on the right side raising his arm like he does, and he's a big old moose. Like it's easy to see when he wants the ball. Um, and Edu just delivers this perfect ball, just comes over and across the box, and Klaus one time volleys it straight into the side netting, into the goal. And the crazy thing about it is as great of a goal as it wasn't even his best goal of the night.
So what's also hard to think about is like that's a like beautifully placed ball from Leuven. I mean, you could
Oh
not have
yeah,
placed that any better, but it's still not an easy shot for Klaus. And
no, it was a
Big Goofy
really really
Moose
nice
made it
finish.
look effortless.
Right. Made it look just simple. Like, why doesn't everyone score this way? Like,
Guys, just hit it out of the air like this.
right.
It's
This
easy.
is all you have to
Trust
do.
me.
Like,
Look, I can do it.
right. You just pass it into the side of the net while it's in the air. It's not hard. They can't do anything about it.
But if you watch, the thing that he didn't do as it was coming down, a lot of players make this mistake, and you see it a lot, is they try to kill the ball as it's coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. He just passed the ball because it's already going to have
Right.
power. It's already going to have, it's on, the ball's
Right.
coming into your foot. So it was a smart, just technical, well placed ball. Um,
You
we
know what's
actually had
funny? Oh, go
we
ahead. Say
actually
your
had
thought.
another rocket of a shot, similar, would have been similar placement. Um, but the goalie was in better position on a breakaway by
Hmm.
Indy early in the game.
Oh yeah,
The
that
goalie
was
made
a
a
that was a
great
rocket.
save on.
Yeah.
But Indy absolutely rocked that thing, just trying to blast it past him.
Mm-hmm.
Where if he would have taken a little off and just, put a little more finesse on it, would have been
Mm-hmm.
an easy goal early in the game.
Right. Um, I was glad you mentioned that, the thing about trying to kill it and how it wasn't the right move there, because on Klaus's second goal of the night, that's exactly what he did. And okay, so Lubin passes it to Stroud, who thinks he's going to take a shot.
I still don't know if he was passing to Stroud, or because if you watch, Stroud's coming
Right.
in, but I think he was trying to get the ball to Klaus.
Yeah. Shit happens
But
in the game. It's fast, it's chaotic, you
no,
know.
it's good. And
Yeah.
then actually, Stroud getting the ball, it was the best thing for it. And if
Right.
you
Because
don't
it
say
freed up
why, I
Klaus.
will.
Yeah. It freed up Klaus because it pulled defenders to Stroud. Then
Yes,
Stroud passes it to Klaus over again, almost in the exact same spot on the right side of the box. Um,
just a little further
a little
out.
further
Yeah.
out. Yeah. But I don't know how he did this. And if you're listening to this and you don't like soccer that much, you didn't watch this game, you have to go look up this goal. Klaus kills it with such ferocity, is the best word I can think of, into the ground that it just bounces straight back up. And he basically volleyed it to himself and with the same foot knocked it in. It was just, it's ridiculous.
So yeah, so the ball comes in, he hits it, hits it and bounces it with his right foot, pops it in the air, and before it comes down, does a goofy little moose hop.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to call it, is the goofy
Yeah.
moose hop, and then just punches it right back into the same side netting he had just scored in a few
Right.
minutes before.
Right. It was almost, with the exception of the self volley, it was almost the exact same thing. But what I did like about it, someone posted it on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, where he like the big giant inflatable wacky arm guys, at tire shops normally is what I think of them. That like Klaus looked exactly like that in that play. And if you didn't have that thought while watching it, go watch it again, and you're gonna like see it because of how he like does that with his arm. Um, does it see you remember it now? Now you're like, oh
Yeah.
my god, that is it.
Yeah. No, I got you now.
um, yeah, it should have won goal of the week. It didn't. It was definitely the superior goal. But whatever.
I think the things that there was things that concerned me in the game. And I
Give up
apologize
a
for
lot of
stumbling
chances.
over my words there, but in the first half, we had some amazing chances and just didn't finish the ball.
Right.
And it made me very concerned. I honestly was really worried that it was going to hamper us down the stretch, that we might
Right.
throw this game away because we weren't putting away the chances when we had them. And we've
Yeah.
been a team that this year, when we get chances, we tend to put them in the net, and
Right.
that's why we win.
We score on very low percentage chances very regularly. Like ones that other teams are never going to convert. We very regularly convert them. And that one, the sliding into the box one by Klaus, like that one, if you look at the expected goals chart, and for those of you listening, if soccer's not really your thing, expected goals is basically it calculates the percentage of time that that shot from that player would go into the net, basically. And there's one where we have a cross into the box and Klaus slides into it, and the expected goals metrics love that this specific type of shot, and it almost always works, and that's why. But it was like a 98% chance of it going in, and it just ended up not a great touch and going out the side. But
Yeah.
it's like a
It
straight line on the chart.
yeah, no, it's you can see if you watch. So there's a lot of graphs out there that'll show you the expected goals through the game, and you can see when that chance happened. It's like, oh, expected goals is going to take a giant spike for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
There was frustrating things, but there was a lot of positives there. There was a lot of good things. Um, I I absolutely love watching Nielsen play.
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, the
me too.
guy he's so
He's
smart, he's so
yeah,
aware, he knows everything that's going on around him. Like if I had to pick like our low key guy that's really making us go down this
mm-hmm.
end stretch. Yeah, Klaus is scoring goals and he's been great, and it's been great to have him back. We were scoring goals without Klaus.
Right,
Nielsen has completely transformed the way our
mm-hmm.
defense plays when he's
Right,
there.
right. And you and I were talking about that all year long. Like okay, we're gonna get Nielsen back, and it's going to change. Like Lutz has been right on so many people before. He would not be so high on Nielsen if Nielsen wasn't going to work out. And we had to worry about coming back from injury and all of that, but like we knew that Nielsen was going to be a game changer, and that's exactly what he was. The other center back though has the last thing I want to say about this game, and I just started laughing when I watched it. So Parker gets a yellow later in the game, and one of the Kansas City guys, probably Polito, is offside, and they kick the ball to him even though he's offside, and they don't call it, and it ends up going out the back, so it doesn't really matter. But Parker looks at the ref and he goes, "It's 5 fucking feet offside," and you can like read his lips that that's what he's saying, and the ref immediately pulls out a yellow, and like the camera is still on Parker's face as he sees it, and he goes, "Oh fuck off," and you can like read his lips, and I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna get kicked out of this game at the end for cussing out the ref, but also like I love it. I'm here for this.
Parker is a passionate dude.
And he's growing an awesome mustache. That's
How
the
many
best thing I can say about
how
Vancouver.
many P's can I get in? Parker is a passionate player who prefers to play profoundly hard. I don't know. I ran out of
And
words.
drink Parker Pilsner. Boom.
So
Not an ad.
yeah, so it is what it
We
is.
weren't
But no,
expecting that.
yeah, it's rough. Hey, you know what? I mean, we still don't have any sponsors. If there's any sponsors that want to get out there, you know
Call
what?
us.
We will shamelessly plug you. as long as you help us, pay for something. I don't know. It doesn't even have to be much. We're not making any money currently. So, uh,
Right. Right. This is a negative income endeavor right now.
hey, that's all right because we're having fun with it.
We
So,
are, except for now we have to talk about Vancouver, which is not fun. I only want to talk about this for 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this.
so for those of you who aren't in the city fan page, John and I posted our predicted lineups.
Nailed it.
Uh,
Yeah. We got the important
we had
ones.
some misses. I was really surprised to see Leuven in the lineup, but I also know that the guy doesn't want to sit ever.
No.
Lunt, it was good to see him play and get some minutes. I mean, I don't think he's had minutes since what, the Open Cup.
No, he played in Leagues Cup. So he played both Open Cup games.
Mm-hmm.
He played, and then he played Leagues Cup against Columbus. And so in those 4 games, well, let's remove the first Open Cup game, right, against Union Omaha, because like doesn't really count for this.
Well, I mean,
Um,
that game does count because that game was a blast. We were
that was
there.
a fun game. That was a fun game. And if you're listening to this and you ever want to go to a city game, like look for the Open Cup tickets. They're dirt cheap. They are midweek games, but they're really really cheap and it's a lot of fun. And the full stadium is open. Definitely, highly recommend. I think we bought tickets for like $40 a piece, and we were like second row off the field at midfield. It was freaking awesome.
It was a great
Um,
time. Oh,
and
and
we
my
and we
boy
won
Celia
five
was
one.
playing like the whole
Yeah,
game, so
yeah,
I
that
was in
was his and
heaven.
AZ's like coming out party. That was when it was like, oh, these guys are ready to ball out. Like, let's do this. But in those 3 games against MLS opponents, so he started against a Chicago Fire team that was not rotated for a US Open Cup game. So basically all of their starters. Okay. And they had one, good goal and one goal that came because Lunt made a bad play, admittedly, a very bad play that he should have cleared. That's one. Okay. He plays against Columbus's starters in the first Leagues Cup game. And if you guys don't know, Columbus is the only team that has like scored anywhere near the amount of goals City has. I think they're the only team that has scored more than us at this point. So they can score goals, and each one of those goals he basically got hung out to dry on. Like they were great finishes, and there's really not a lot a goalkeeper can do in a 2-on-1 basically. And then there's last night where yeah it ended up 3-0, but looking at those goals, okay, so bad transition moment for the first one. Yeah, Berkey maybe comes off his line quicker and maybe saves it, but like there's not Lunt played it as well as you could.
That goal is on Yarrow.
I agree.
Yarrow
It,
was waiting for the ball to come to him,
right.
and God, who was it last night? Their main goal scorer, their striker. Who
Oh, it was so they have Ryan Gauld and they have
it'll
Clark.
come.
Is that his name? Brian Clark?
I don't. I'll find. Well, I'll look it up in
Yeah.
a minute. But either way, Yarrow is sitting there waiting for the ball to come to him instead of like stepping into the ball. All he did was run up, and just hit the ball with his head around Yarrow and just take off, and he was off to the races. I want to say his last name's like White or something like that.
Brian
But
White. Brian White. Yes,
hey,
that's it. Yeah, Brian White. I was like, I know it's Brian something super common last name.
yeah, uh,
But yeah, and then the second goal, Sebastian Berhalter, Greg's son. It was a great finish. Like I mean, there's not a lot you can do if they're going to put the ball in the upper corner on the far side of the net.
I was actually disappointed in Thorson a little if you watch the replay.
Yeah,
So he starts to step, stops, and backpedals away from Berhalter, which gives him the space to take the shot.
right,
There was a guy making a run, and I get that, but you gave the guy. You mean it was just understanding positioning, and again,
right,
Thorson hasn't had a lot of minutes, and I was touching on that earlier. That was kind of a prelude to this piece on the second goal, in that
mm-hmm.
you can tell he hasn't had a ton of minutes because his touch looks off in real time. He doesn't look like the player
Right.
we thought we were getting. And
Well,
it's not that he's
well,
been a bad player by any means. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he can be more. He just
right.
he's not as comfortable
And that's
at
partly
speed right now.
system too, you know. I mean, he came in mid-season, like he's still learning the system and how everyone plays and all of that. I mean, I always kind of viewed him more as a next year guy for us, myself. But I did think his touches looked off against Kansas City too. The goal, I think initially the sequence that led to the goal in Kansas City actually begins with like his second or third giveaway that he had in like 3 minutes, where he's just, you know, careless with the ball. I don't really his giveaways or his touches last night. I'm not going to hold too much against him because you know the ball is moving a lot faster on turf, and I don't think that our guys were really prepared for it. I know they have a turf practice field, but I don't know. We just looked a little off with the ball. But I mean, we were also just making bad decisions with it. It wasn't just like kicking it like too hard and people getting it. It was also passing it straight to Vancouver players
I
like
felt like
repeatedly.
the first half of that game was the most frustrating half of soccer I've watched St. Louis City play all season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think RSL was bad, and I think Portland 2 was bad. That RSL 2 was bad specifically. Other than those three games, I mean, okay, Chicago was not a great showing, but we had just lost Klaus. We're still figuring out how to play. Like, I'm not gonna like because he went
And
down in the
but
Portland game.
I just look at the way that like every time the ball was on
Colorado,
our feet, we looked like we didn't know what we were doing or what we
right?
wanted to do. And I get that we're playing on turf, and honestly, that's why I think most of our guys were sitting. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do with, you know, Carnell wanting to go for records or, Carnell wants every record he can
He
get.
does. He wants to
He
win
is a
every
competitive
game.
dude and he wants to be the best at everything. If you watch the interview with him, he talked about wanting, he knows, if we win our game against Seattle,
Points
we'll have
record,
the most points ever. And then we extend. He even made a comment about if we can win some more games, we put that record even further out of reach for the next expansion team.
right? And
And
and I
so
mean,
but
yeah,
we were playing guys on turf. Um, I was surprised to see, Indy starting. I was surprised to see Leuven starting. And I was
yeah.
surprised to see Big Sam starting. And I honestly thought with the turf, with the pace, et cetera, I thought we would see Thorson potentially up top on the left.
Hmm.
Um,
That was what I thought was going to happen too. I really thought this was going to be an opportunity for Thorson to get minutes, and to give, you know, Sam's had a lot of minutes lately. Um, you know, but and maybe Thorson and Nico. I mean, we don't see what goes on in practice, right? Maybe they just don't have a good connection yet. You know, I mean, that's part of it too. Like if they don't play well off of each other, like you don't necessarily want to start them next to each other, either. And we don't know that. We don't see practice. I don't know. That's just me speculating.
yeah, I agree. I get that. The other player that I was really surprised didn't start, and I've said this time and time again, and anybody who's followed our podcast is probably not going to be surprised by the fact that I'm talking about this player, but
Hmm.
Celio Pompeu, in my mind, should have started.
Yeah.
The guy is good. He's good off the dribble. He's got great skills with the ball at his feet. He's comfortable there, and that was something I felt like we were really lacking last
Right.
night. And I get the turf changes things, and you could even see even when he was on the ball, and he's very good on the dribble. There was
Right.
a couple instances where he looked uncomfortable after he came on as a sub,
Right.
but it was surprising to me because I feel like the way he's played,
Hmm.
especially every time we've seen him recently, that he has earned more minutes
Hmm.
than what he's getting, especially in a game like Vancouver where we're already rotating the squad. The player that I was surprised they started, I was figured we would have seen Celio over Indy. Really, is what I would have thought.
Yeah. What really surprised me as far as the starting lineup goes is with the formation we used. So we've almost always seen Ostrak play centrally, right? We very rarely have seen him on the wings, and he started. We did a wide 4-4-2 or a flat 4-4-2, and I was really surprised to see him out wide on the left there, um, which is normally a spot Celio plays is right there, and maybe that's showing us, you know, kind of the pecking order for the midfielders. Um, but you know, I was not surprised to see Ostrak to be the guy subbed at half, for this. Did Indy start? I thought Stroud started. I thought it was
Maybe Indy
Löwenthal.
came in as maybe it's
Yeah,
Ostrak. You're right.
right. Because
Indy
I
didn't start.
remember.
It was Ostrak on the
Right,
left, but
right.
yeah, and so I misspoke. So good
That's fine.
catch there.
Well, I only remember because I thought AZ came in for Stroud because it was kind of blurry how far away they were, and I thought it was Ostrak on the field, not Stroud.
Yeah,
And then they said,
no,
"Oh, he replaced Ostrak," and I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot."
it's cool. I'll admit when I'm a dumbass, and in this instance, I was one. Actually, in most instances, I am. So, spoiler alert to anybody listening.
You haven't picked up
But
on
no,
it
I
by
agree.
now.
It would. So I thought we would see Ostrak start. But I think when I put out my lineup, I think I had a diamond.
You
Um,
did.
and I think I had Ostrak up top with Celio on the left and
You
Stroud on
did.
the right.
Yeah,
And
that was it.
it's nothing against, any of the other guys, but I think I think it was an interesting thing, and I think it's interesting to see. I feel like Cardinal does not have as much faith in Celio as maybe he's earned looking at the way he plays in games.
Yeah, I mean, he could be a guy who's a gamer, right? There are definitely athletes out there that, you know, aren't that great in practice for any number of reasons, but when it's game time, they find another level and they take it up a notch. Um,
But
but
there's
I
guys that do
also,
the exact opposite.
yes, yeah, yeah, they're a guy. I mean, Isaac
Jensen.
Jensen, yeah, that's exactly right. Like we've been hearing all year that Jensen was dominant in practice, and then in games. I mean, you didn't see it in his game time with City this year, and we're really hoping that he figures it out in Denmark and comes back because he could be based off of his age and his profile, he could be a core piece of this team for years if he can put it all together. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. You don't one thing that you don't really see as much with Celio is and I mean we did see it against Minnesota a little bit off the ball, but when Ostrak has been able to get involved in scoring, not necessarily always being the goal scorer. I don't think we have seen that in games as much from Celio, but like when he gets the ball at his feet and he's like a lot of times he looks like the best player on the field when he gets the ball. And I mean I'm not exaggerating. And I know we've said it almost every time it comes up, but the Club America game, he was the only one of our players that looked like he belonged on the field with them. Like
Yeah.
period. And there were some really good players on that team that we were playing against.
Yeah, there was a couple players like Leuven who had, you could tell belonged, but just was so far back defensively he couldn't show it. But yeah, no, in that Club America game, definitely like the one of the players that, and it caught everyone off guard, I think, a little bit. I mean, I had been singing his praises since the Union Omaha game, and before that, even.
Right.
The guy's got a tenacity. He reminds me a lot of Stroud with better ball skills and a
Mm-hmm.
little less motor.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a more controlled motor.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. It's
but
not that
yeah, a
he
less
can't. Yeah.
frantic
A
motor.
less frantic motor. Yeah. Yeah. Stroud
Because he
is
still
like the
has that.
Energizer Bunny on cocaine.
Because when we talk, right, one of the things that you love about Stroud is that tenacity and the fact that he
Mm-hmm.
picks at people and gets into them. Celio does the same
Right.
stuff,
Well,
but he's
so
better on the ball. And now
yeah.
I think Stroud is better off the ball at times than Celio is.
Well, I think Stroud has a better press, a consistently better press. Not to say that Celio can't press. I just think that that's like Stroud's big skill that like makes him
That's what he
valuable.
brings to the table, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he knows that and he
Right.
plays into that very well.
Right. Let me ask you this about getting under people's skin. If you had to pick a third player to get that's getting under people's skin, I think it's a pretty clear obvious who the third player is on our team who does that now. And I'm curious if you noticed it.
Um
I'm gonna give you a hint. He's new.
Marcanic, people hate him. So I was like, I'm thinking through Marcanic and I was like thinking through the matches and I'm like, is he talking like season long or is he talking like more recent? Because
Yeah.
people hate Marcanic.
Yes. And I'm here for it. Although that little headbutt he did against Sporting Kansas, I saw that and I was like, oh God.
So when he dropped that little headbutt against
Yeah.
Kansas, I was like, oh my God, he's lost it. And then a couple minutes later, I watched him get under somebody's skin and laugh it off. I'm like, no, he's in
He
control and he's in
knows.
their heads. How the like I thought for sure Kansas had gotten in his head.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't even 5 minutes later, there was something happened and he laughed
Right.
and just kept rolling.
Right.
Speaking of, moments like that, I think we didn't talk about it. I am very vocal, at least when I watch games. I get very frustrated because I feel
Sure.
like Big Sam is
Okay.
not as good at pressing as he could be at times. He's
He,
very
he he's he
conservative
waits
about
too
when
long
he
to enact
presses.
it. Yeah, he waits too long to enact it. When he triggers the press, it comes
He's
very quick. But
amazing with the
right,
speed and the
but if he
closing. And
did it right, if he did it like 1 to 2 seconds before, they wouldn't be able to pass out of it as often as they do. I don't think, because I think because he is conservative in when he triggers it, it gives them an extra 1 to 2 seconds to survey the field and figure out what they're thinking they can do with it. And if he would pull that trigger a little bit quicker, that I think they'd make more mistakes, basically.
No, I agree. But so again, I have harped on him for his defense and things.
Sure.
Um, but that slide tackle,
Oh God.
oh
Yeah.
my God. I was like, I
Like,
just realized we didn't even mention it.
yeah. Yeah.
And
I forgot all about that slide tackle until you said it.
oh, you talk. And so for those of you who didn't watch the game, Big Sam loses the ball. You could tell he's frustrated. He comes in at full speed. And for those of you who don't know, Big Sam might be the fastest player in the league, but if not, he's very close.
He's up
By the
there.
way, he's
He's up there
six
for
foot
sure.
five and one of the biggest guys in the league, too.
Yes.
He
He's a
comes in
big
full
guy.
speed, slides in, gets the ball, goes through the guy. The guy lands on him, mind you. He gets up, and Kansas City is ready to fight us. Their entire team
Right.
is ready to fight. And all Big Sam, and I loved this. He just puts his head down and starts walking towards
Right.
Berkey.
Right. Just walks away. Like he knew. He knew
Like he
that
knew
was
he was
violent.
about to start something, and he was like,
Well,
I'm not
not
getting in
getting
the middle
into
of
it.
this. I
Right.
don't need a card. I don't got time for this. I'm
Right.
in your head, and I'm gonna walk away, and I'm good with
Right.
that.
And I mean, it was it was violent, but it was, you know, as
And
clean
they
of a
did they
tackle
did
that a
call the
violent
foul.
tackle
They
can
did
be.
call a
Yeah,
foul
it
on
was a
him,
foul. Yeah,
and it was a
but
foul, but it was not a dirty foul. I mean, he hit the ball, he got the guy in the follow through. The problem is, I mean, like he's a big dude and coming at full speed.
right.
So I think it was the right call. And I mean, even the announcers, I believe, said it was like, no, that's the right call. It's not a yellow card foul. But you
Right.
could see him just put his head down and I'm going to start walking towards our
Right.
goalie, and I'm not going to stop until plays roll again
Right.
because I'm not going to get in a fight right now.
Right.
And the guys that were getting in his face are half his size. And I'm like,
Yeah.
he is the last guy I would run up and pick a fight with on our team.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe not the
Parker,
last, but
he's
like
up there. Yeah. He's up
maybe
there.
not the
Well,
last guy I would pick, but you know what I mean? Like
right.
if I was gonna go like, hey, I'm gonna go get in a fight with somebody, and they went and grabbed somebody like a mechanic, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. The guy's a scrawny little kid.
Yeah, but he looks like a guy who can scrap. You know what I mean? And it's not just the wicked awesome haircut that he's
Dude, I
got,
God,
but he looks
I am
crazy.
all for mechanic.
Yeah.
The kid is. Did you see the so in the same interview with Cardinal when they
Hmm.
were talking, he was talking about I want this record, I want that record, right?
Hmm.
You have Marcanic talking about going from the worst team in the
Oh
West
yeah. Yeah.
to the
I
best
saw
team in
that.
the West. And he was like, man, when we came here we came here and I was on Colorado, he's like, the atmosphere was crazy. Like he's like, it was so exciting. It was amazing to be a part of and to play here. And then to find out that you guys signed me, and it's just like, yeah, yeah, you come on over and you keep playing the way you're playing and you keep getting under people's skin because I
Right.
am here for it.
Right. Well, and I don't know if the tackle was on the same guy, but it was on Marcanic kept going up against the right back, right? Davis for Kansas. And like just like everything Marcanic did, like you could just tell he was just pissing him off. Even when and a lot of it was also like Marcanic intentionally starting shit and like walking away. But some of it was also just like it had got to the point where it's just like playing the game, like was annoying him. And I was like, yes, yes. Now we have another guy who can do that. And don't get me wrong, I know I would hate Stroud if he was on a different team. I know I would hate Marcanic if he was on a different team. But like they're not on a different team. They're on my team. And if you can distract the other team and make them like get really frustrated and rush and just be annoyed the whole time, they're not focusing on the little things they need to be focusing on. So I'm here for it.
No, I agree. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think one of the, you know, seeing Marcanic play, one of the things I did not want was him to play the full 90 at
Yeah,
Vancouver. He was the other one. He's young,
yeah,
he'll bounce back, but playing on turf, I'm always worried about injuries. The
right.
play's different. But God, could you imagine how many headaches could be caused late in a game if you have Marcanic and Celio running at you on the left side? Just and if you watch Celio, he's John in people's ears at times too.
Hmm.
He's not shy to
To tell them what he thinks. Yeah,
yes, and I'm here for it, man. The guy,
right.
I
He
love
is.
every minute.
He
Celio, if
is.
I can ever get you to listen to an episode, we would love I would love nothing more than to have him on, on a Zoom call here with us for an interview. But um,
So
I
far,
don't know
it
that
hasn't happened.
it's going to happen. But I can,
I
a
have
guy
faith.
can hope, a guy can dream.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's talk about a dream we had at the beginning of the year: playoffs. We freaking made it, and we're the number one seed. And so that means that we have home field advantage at least through the Western Conference, to the finals, basically. Um, so first off, like we've talked a lot about what this atmosphere means for us, for our team when we're playing at City Park, and that means we're going to have it in every game except for one in the first round. Because the first round is a weird best of three situation because they wanted to get more games and give everyone a chance to host because, money talks and it's a league that doesn't really make a lot of money. So like I'm not going to complain too much about it. Like teams need to be making money to make it better, right? Like I understand that.
Not every
Um,
club is St. Louis City with 100,000+
that's what I heard.
people in line for season tickets.
Well, okay, so you know what's crazy about that? So you mentioned in the last game that I'm a Green Bay fan as far as the NFL goes, and it's pretty well known that they have a crazy wait list. Do you know how many people are on the Green Bay season ticket wait list right now? 140,000. We have almost caught up to Green Bay's wait list. And like I
In
know that
one
their
year.
stadium, yeah, in 1 year. Yeah. And I know that their stadium is huge and whatever, and like people just don't give them up. But still, like we've almost caught them in 1 year. That's freaking amazing to me. Um, but we do have a bit of a break before we play Seattle. So the thought that like I've had is that this game against Seattle, this game against Vancouver last night, like they only matter for pride, right? And kind of for possible home field advantage, based off of the entire league's point totals, not just the West. I don't know how much I care too much
There,
about it, but
there's one game that is haunting me right now
okay.
for the potential seeding and
Screw
coming
me.
going into the championship game, because there's only two teams ahead of us, right? And
Right.
we can't catch Cincy.
No,
But do you know what happened when Cincy came to us?
beat the shit out of them.
Because you and I were there.
Yeah,
uh,
it was a weird game to
it
be
was a
to be
weird
fair
game. So
to
like
because of the weather and all that.
I get that. But the other team that's ahead of us right now, Orlando,
Orlando,
that's the game that hurts me right
that
now.
was unplanned. That in
And that
sync
was
was unplanned. I want everyone to know that.
the piece of, and if anybody wants to know, we have when we talk about, oh, we had this on the outline, we have like general topics of, hey, we need to talk about the break that's coming up.
Right.
This also is not scripted, so it isn't even on the thing. But Orlando, that was the start of the bullshit handball calls that started fucking us over for a stretch there.
The string of them. There were a few
I
before
said it
that,
was
before Leagues
these
Cup.
that
So
that was the big one though. Like we're coming out of
right,
League's Cup, it seemed like
right. Because it
it,
turns out
I'm
no,
not upset about it being called as much as it's not called consistently in
right,
MLS.
right,
It's not the same every game. If it was the same every game, I got
right.
zero complaints.
Well, and I think there was also one at Minnesota, maybe that did well, that didn't get called, but it was on. I think the ref played advantage, and we ended up scoring, so it didn't matter. It was
Other
something
thing I will
very
highlight
bizarre.
with reffing, because we just played Vancouver, I have a lot of appreciation and respect for Cardinal because he never mentions
Never,
the refs on
no,
why we lose a
no,
game.
no.
Vancouver's coach, on the other hand, when they came to
Right.
St. Louis, absolutely laid into the league, laid into the refs,
Hmm.
let everyone
Yeah.
know that the only reason Vancouver lost in St. Louis because of the refs. Go back and watch that game. That's not why they
It's not.
lost the
No,
game.
I was there. It is not. They did not play very well. Uh, One of the things that I did like about Coach was after the game, like he was very upfront. Like, yeah, we played bad. This was one of our worst performances of the year. And I like that he doesn't shy away from that. I like that he's very honest. And I'm kind of glad we had this performance, right? Because we have 17 days off right now where they can like stew over the fact that they probably thought they were going to win that game last night, and it went rather poorly. And like this can be their wake up call before going into the playoffs. So I am rather thankful for that. I don't think we necessarily needed the rest as much this time around. I do think the League's Cup break was critical for us. Summer's hot. We play a high energy, lot of running style, like even compared to other soccer teams. Soccer is a sport where you run a lot, but turns out we run more than most. Spoiler alert. I remember thinking that in a lot of those games in July, especially, um, how tired the guys that were not, especially the guys who were not from the US or had not been in the US for a while, and used to like our summers, like just how tired they were. Leuven, Blom, um, who else? Berkey even talked about how the heat was kind of affecting them because they're just not used to it. And I very strongly believe that part of what's been our success since the League's Cup break has been the fact that we had that break, and it was clear we played like 10 backups against Columbus, the highest scoring team in the league. And then yeah, we brought out the best guys at the time again in the League's Cup game against Club America, but like they just looked exhausted. And I'm glad we had that break because some of the other teams that went far, like look at Nashville. Nashville was scary before the League's Cup and very scary in it. And they've plummeted to like being seventh in the East. I mean, they've clinched the playoffs, but they just don't look great.
Well, and the thing with Nashville too, right? And looking at Nashville, I also just realized I don't have my headphones on as you were playing with your stuff.
Yeah.
So if anybody, hopefully that didn't screw up our audio too bad, but the the Nashville team, they were scary. I mean, they came that we went to Nashville and got beat up pretty good, but they were a good team. They looked great. They were playing hard. But another team to think about, like team that played a lot of games. Think about LAFC,
Oh yeah.
all the games they played and working through things, and it's just it takes its toll. They were
Hmm.
playing in the CONCACAF Champions League,
And they
which
made
is
it to the
very
finals.
prestigious, and they made it to the finals. They lost in the finals, and they also just lost the Tigres Cup or whatever.
It was it, it's the
It's
stupidest
the
effing
winner.
thing.
It's
It's the
the winner
Campeones
of
Cup.
the Mexican League versus the winner of the U.S. League.
Right.
But they lost that game too, and but they've looked tired and off for a while.
Hmm.
Seeing them last night against Minnesota, they look like they're starting to find their stride again,
Right.
which really tells me that I want them on the other side of the
Yeah.
bracket.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
so that
completely fine with not having to play them in the playoffs because there's not many teams that scare me in the playoffs on our side of the bracket. Um, LAFC is one that can because they're one of the few teams that I think up and down the lineup have an ability to finish. Um, and so there's really like no one that you can push the ball to and be like, it's okay if this guy has a half decent chance because he can't finish. Um, Most of the guys in the lineup can do that. LAFC is a team that can press very well, and we don't do very well against the press so far. So they're completely fine playing our game model against us. And that's it works for them. So I'm not it I feel like LAFC down the stretch has been like they've been up for individual games like when they've had to be like when they played us the second time like that was until last night that was the best LAFC has looked since League's Cup. Maybe except for maybe their first game back. But they have in the playoffs they're going to have to be good every game, and I don't know if they find their momentum they're going to be scary, that's for sure.
um, So yeah, but you talked about Nashville. The one thing Nashville consistently has going for them, though, they have Hani Mukhtar,
Freaking
and
stud.
that guy knows how to score. He knows how to find the net, and that's always dangerous.
So Hani was last year's MVP, and Lucho Acosta is going to be this year's MVP. Like I know we all want it to be Berkey, but as many points that Berkey has saved for us, like Lucho Acosta has like single handedly won them. God knows how many by being the only goal scorer in a 1-0 game. Like that's happened like 4 or 5 times this year. Um, but so both of those guys are either like almost like in the final process for becoming citizens or like very close to being able to start the process. And so there's talk that those guys could be called in to the U.S. men's national team when they get their citizenship, which I think is really cool to think about. And I know they're going to be on the older end when 2026 comes. It's just cool to me.
No,
But
I mean it's exciting to see people who want to play for the U.S. national team because the U.S. men's national team's come a long way
yeah,
over the years.
absolutely.
And speaking of the national team, there is a break here, and the reason that we have this break is it's international break, which is
Mm-hmm.
why we're not playing for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Normally MLS plays through these breaks. But for this one, because it's like right before decision day, they went ahead and took it. Um, because it gives everyone like a little break before the playoffs and can build that tension to decision day, the last day of the regular season for like how important are these games.
We're gonna miss one player, right? We're losing one. I don't know that we're missing any
I
more
think
than the
that's it.
one.
I think it's just the one.
And God bless him. From South Africa with
With
love.
love.
Uh, Blom is headed back to play with South Africa during this stretch. I think it's going to be a big test for Cardinal to keep the
Mm-hmm.
team on point and fresh
Mm-hmm.
into this. Eh, Hebert could have gotten called up with Canada, but that's hit and miss, right? I mean, he'd be a bench player with Canada even if he did get called up. I mean, he's not going to
Right.
go and start right away. And I think Cardinal needs to keep people fresh. He needs to keep them
Mm-hmm.
hungry. He needs to keep them ready to go, which we touched on earlier. But playing somebody like Seattle after this break is going to be great playoff
Mm-hmm.
style atmosphere for us
Absolutely.
for that first game back to be before playoff start.
Right. I do worry. So I think South Africa has 2 games in this window. And I don't know the exact dates for them, but depending on if Blom plays the second or the first game or at all, or if he starts or if he comes off the bench, like, it's a long flight back to St. Louis from South Africa, or wherever they're playing. I'm presuming it's somewhere on the continent of Africa. Um, the issue is that he may not be match like start fit ready for Seattle, depending on travel and all of that. So that does worry me because he does change the entire flow and outlook of our team. Um, but everyone else is going to stay here. They're going to do an intra squad scrimmage. I'm curious what your thoughts are. How would you, okay, so you've got the 20 something players that we have, right? And you're going to make 2 11 on 11 teams and then have 5 subs for each one and just rotate people through. But like your starters for each team, how are you, splitting broadly? We don't have to go into specifics and give like a detailed roster, but how are you splitting the lineups for each team to play against each other? Because I have a clear idea of what I would do.
Do you know what I would do and
What's
just
that?
get the most competitive game I could?
What's that?
I would give Berkey and I'd give Lunt team captains and do a schoolyard pick.
Ooh, I do like that. My explicit thought would be it, but I like your idea so much. It sounds like a lot of fun. And now my brain is like going through like, because like Berkey would be so pissed if he lost. He would be so pissed if he lost.
But who does Berkey take with his first pick? Do you take a striker? Or do you take Nielsen or Parker? And there's so
Yeah,
many things that play into that.
yeah,
And I think it would be really exciting to watch the goalies and how they picked their teams.
right. I just want you
Do you
to
pick the
know.
guys you don't want shooting at you, or do you pick the
Yeah,
guys you want in front of you defending you?
right. So for future content, we need to do like a live thing where we draft our squad from within St. Louis City to play a scrimmage against the other team. That we are doing that. We are absolutely doing that. However, my thought is you choose the groups of guys that are probably going to play well or play together so that way they can work together and build chemistry, continue building chemistry. And I think you put all of your starting attacking players on one team and all of your starting defending players on the other so that all of your starters are like going up against the higher level talent of that, for their opposites, basically. That's my
What you're
thought.
saying makes sense, but it sounds lame.
It doesn't sound as much fun as a schoolyard draft. I'm a big fan of drafts, so
I'm a big
not
fan of
not
the
the military,
schoolyard
but
pick.
yeah,
Uh, as long as I'm not last, which has happened a few times in my lifetime. So
it happens.
I
Happens
was
to
the
everyone.
homeschool kid when came to public schools in
No
eighth
one knew.
grade. And,
No one knew.
I was picked last the first couple of times, but luckily not much after that.
What I'm hearing is that whoever drafted you was the Lutz Pfannenstiel of this of this roster selection, and
Well, so even though I was homeschooled, I was playing, you know,
right.
competitive sports with a lot of these guys. But I remember there was it eighth grade first semester,
Mm-hmm.
long time ago. Um, I didn't really know anybody in that class, in
Sure.
that gym class. And so they all were like, "Oh, I don't know who you are." So they just picked me last. And it happened twice and then never happened again.
Hmm.
Uh, come come spring semester, I had a bunch of the guys that I had played soccer with and,
Right.
wrestled with growing up. And they were like, yeah, no, we don't, we want him on our side. So I was picked much higher up after that, thank God. But I do know the feeling of being picked last, and it's not a good one.
Not a good one. So let's see. I'm trying to think of how I want to incorporate my last few topics that I wanted to talk about.
You're
Um,
just trying to figure out how to insert it subtly.
yes, but I'm not a subtle person, so I'm just gonna make this very awkward and like riding like a very bad roller
So do
coaster.
you remember that one time when I had a beautiful transition and then you stopped my transition just so you could make one more point? Yeah, that's kind of like this. I'm pausing you now.
That's fine. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Things don't get under my skin, they get under your skin. Completely
Wait.
unrelated things get
Oh,
under
no,
my
no, no.
skin.
Time out. Time out. Things don't get under your skin,
No,
but
no,
when I
no.
pick at you for Stroud, you mute the conversation and won't talk to me.
I didn't say things don't get under my skin. I said the things that get under
No, no, no,
your
no. You
skin
just
don't
said
get under
things
my
don't get.
skin.
No, that's not what you
You
said. You
didn't
said
hear what I
things
said.
don't get under
Play
my
it on
skin, they get
repeat.
under your
Play
skin.
it, play it under on repeat. Things that get under your skin don't get under my skin.
I will. I'm going to listen to this
Yeah.
episode as soon as we
My,
done,
my exact
just so I can prove
verbiage
you wrong
may
because
have
that's who
been
I am and I'm petty.
that's fine. My exact verbiage may have been things don't get under my skin that get under your skin, but that was the point. But you probably didn't hear it because, one track mind and all of that. However, so we do have CONCACAF Champions Cup in January. So that issue that LAFC has had, Philadelphia as well with fixture congestion, there's a good chance we may have to deal with that next year, but it's worth it to play in continental competition, I think, and really go out. I do think that our team will have enough depth to deal with it. But one thing that does concern me is if we get to the MLS Cup finals this year, the final is like the middle of December. And with the expanded Champions League next year, because like 27 teams make it, it's been rumored, they haven't announced the actual dates, but it's been rumored that it's going to start earlier and could start in January. So we may only have like a 1 month off season to like rest, recuperate, and get going. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but I'm also like really excited that like for my own selfish reasons that it's going to be a very small off season without soccer. So,
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I think the turnaround could hurt a little bit.
yeah,
And we'll see how it goes. The problem is if we get into the CONCACAF
no, we
Champions
are
League,
in, we are
not
in,
if we, but when we start, sorry,
right,
when we start it's not like the Open Cup where we can really kind of play a bunch of second string
right,
guys, whatever. Yeah, we have some depth, but if you want to actually advance in that tournament, you're going to have to play your starters, and I
right.
think
And to do that, you have to play your depth in league games when the league games start.
correct,
That
and
being
that's
said,
what's gonna we'll see how the schedule plays out for us,
That's
but
true. Yeah.
that's what's going to hurt, right? If
Right.
if the schedule's favorable, and this is something else that we don't talk about much, but LAFC had a lot of their MLS games pushed back
Right.
so that they didn't have the overlapping games with the
Right.
CONCACAF Champions League. And if we get that same treatment, the flip, there's a double-edged sword,
Well,
right? It helps
well,
you
you
early, but
have to.
late in the season, you end up having all those games packed
Right.
together, which is what's hitting
Right.
LAFC in that what during that kind of
Right.
lull they had.
Well, and they had to because of midweek games, right? When there's a Wednesday match day, right? The CONCACAF Champions League games are going to be on Wednesdays or midweek. Like it's physically not possible. So they have to push the league games back because like our game that was against them got pushed back. Actually, I think we had a couple of games pushed back because they also pushed us back on the July 4th one, so that way they could have the El Trafico, which is LA Galaxy versus LAFC at the Rose Bowl on July 4th. Um, but yeah, and we also, I think this goes back to roster expansion in MLS. You get 30 guys on a roster, and that sounds like a lot until you realize that for most teams, like only like 15 to 18 of them may, and I'm being very generous with that, are, MLS starter caliber or close to it. I think we have more than most. So I'm less worried about that for us. I think we could easily do that um, compared to most. But yeah, it's going to be something to watch next year.
Well, and I think the roster expansion that we're talking about isn't just true roster expansion, it's also international slot expansion.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
need
Right.
there are a lot of homegrown guys, but the best homegrown players are all going overseas,
Mm-hmm.
and rightfully so, right? I mean, if you can go play in Serie A in Italy, if you can go play in La Liga in Spain, if you can go play in the Bundesliga 1 in Germany, or even better, the Premier League in England, you go there, right? Like
Right.
don't stay in MLS. You need to
No.
be go playing in those leagues if you can, and that's what's best for us and for USA as as a national team. But
Mm-hmm.
they want to the sport grow the sport by bringing in the best talent you can.
Mm-hmm.
That may be adding one or two international spots to each team over the next year or two to be able to account for, hey, we want to be more competitive in the CONCACAF Champions
Mm-hmm.
League. We want to be more competitive in these tournaments. And we want to be able to hold up to those top teams that
Mm-hmm.
are in Mexico that I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're not where we need to be.
Right. Right. Well, in my thought for that, before we kind of hit up the last little bit for, I think expectations in the playoffs and stuff is what I would do is I would do 5 additional roster slots, expand the salary cap because the other issue is the salary cap. Add a fourth DP slot. So our designated players, it's a mechanism that basically, they only hit the cap at a set amount, which I think is around 650,000. But you can pay them more than that. At a fourth spot to do that, you can have up to 3 right now. And then I would add, like you said, another international roster slot as well. I think that would go a long way. Um,
I agree with that. I think, you know, the next few deals that are handed out, if there's another deal that comes in that is um, handed out with the Miami, I guess if you look at the Messi treatment and the deal that he got and all the endorsements and things,
sure.
if they're going to throw all those pieces at us, I think that's really, we need to spread out the wealth, right? We need to get to
Right.
some other teams. So
Right.
um, we've been on this for a little bit here. So last piece that I want to ask,
Sure.
what is your floor for a successful playoff push?
Well, first off, I like how you asked that, how you phrased that, because I think the floor for a successful season we have vastly surpassed. But the expectations have changed, right? So now I'm going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be happy with just making the playoffs, right? We're the number 1 seed. That comes with expectations. Um, I So crashing out in the first round is a disappointment. Going out in the second round would be not horrible, but I wouldn't be like, you know, proud of how we did necessarily unless we played like a really good game and just lost, right? Um, I think I think conference finals, so the semifinals overall, um, is where I would be like happy. I don't know if that's like their actual floor. That's just where I would be happy.
I really wanted you to say something stupid so that I could be like, you're not just wrong, you're stupid, because I've been waiting to use that line all night and you just
Sure.
haven't given me a chance.
Sorry that I'm
Um,
smarter than you.
Debatable.
Debatable.
Depends on what we're talking about.
Right.
If you're talking about in our careers and clinically, then yeah, probably. But on the flip side of that, this is my floor for being a successful playoffs is
Sure.
if we lose in the semifinals of the conference
Mm-hmm.
in PKs
In
or extra
PKs.
time.
Right. I think the semifinals do have extra time before
They do have
PKs.
extra time,
Yeah.
correct. The
Because the
only the
first round
first
doesn't.
round does not. It goes straight
Right.
PKs. If we lose the first round in extra time or PKs, or otherwise we need to make the conference finals.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I conference
That's my
finals is like
floor.
my floor of
My
what I would be
ceiling is
happy
we
with.
win it all and everyone can go fuck themselves, especially Kansas.
That's it. That's the show. That's the mic drop moment.
On that note, we'll go ahead and wrap this up because we're closing in on an hour and a half of you guys having to listen to us speak. So if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow for future content. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Go and check out our Facebook page because we do a whole lot of comments and different things there, even if we sometimes make a terrible post like I did today and misword it. Sorry to those of you who caught me. And
Thank you
if
for
as
calling him out. Thank you for calling him out. All of you who did that. If you are listening this long and you have not unfollowed us because of the post, thank you.
and please I'll make sure to comment next time John messes something up, and I'm going to tag everyone who comments on our stuff and see if I
Please
can
do.
pull it up. We'll light you up. Don't worry, buddy. Until next time, we're the Lunatics, and we got a fun one coming for you next week with an follow-up interview with our pickleball pro, and some hot takes from him on St. Louis sports, the Cardinals, Blues, and City. See you next time, guys.